All right, you should be good.
All right, good evening, everybody. I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for our Strategic Planning Committee meeting tonight. I know there's some new faces, new parents, new community leaders, new staff maybe who have joined up with us, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who did tonight. Today's date is 9/12/23. So we're going to go ahead and call our meeting into order. I hope everyone had a moment to really look over our meeting minutes from August. That was on August the 8th. We had our meeting. Are there any questions, concerns, or comments or corrections about those minutes?
No, I didn't have any.
Okay. All right. If there's none, we'll accept them. And at this time, I'll pass the meeting on over to Brian. Thank you.
Great. Like Charity said, we have a lot of new members starting tonight. So wanted to thank all of the parents and teachers who filled out that interest survey and said that they wanted to come to these meetings and be able to be a voice in some of the planning and discussions that we have as a board committee and as an administrative team through this venue for the school's sort of strategic initiatives and major plans and goal setting, and as well as updates that occur throughout the year via this committee. So before we get started, I know that there's some new faces and some new names in the participant window. So I wanted to take an opportunity just to real quickly, I know there's a number of us, but just to go quickly down the participant list. It should be alphabetized by your first name, and we can kind of go down and just real quickly say who you are, what your role is, if you are a parent, maybe what grade level your children are in, if you're a staff member, what you teach or what your role is, just so that sort of everybody here can get a sense of the eclectic mix of different stakeholders that are part of the committee and then would bring different perspectives to the discussions. So I'll start. My name is Brian Bruto. I'm the Chief Academic Officer here at Avon Grove Charter School. And then we can kind of go down the list.
Hi, I'm Charity Longnecker. I'm the Vice President of the board. And I also have 2 children right now that are enrolled in Avon Grove Charter. One is in kindergarten and one is in 8th grade.
I'm April Detweiler. I have 3 kids, twins that just started kindergarten, and I have a 3rd grader, Erlani. So, and I'm very excited to be a part of this. I think it'll be really neat for the school.
I'm Amy Davis. I have 3 kids at Avon Grove Charter, 1 in 8th, 1 in 6th, and 1 in 3rd.
All right, so if either Courtney or R. Moreno is there and has access to the mic, you guys are up next.
Oh, sorry. I'm Robin Marino. My nephew just started the charter school. He's in 6th grade. And we joined this because I'd been out of the Avon Grove system for a while, but we decided to go with the charter and just kind of wanted to be part of the community sense of helping what's going on.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Courtney Himes. I am a parent of a 2nd grader at the ELC, and I have just wanted to get more involved with his school and just really the way that it's run. I'm interested in knowing the ins and outs of it, and I look forward to working with most of you. Just kidding, all of you.
All right, we're on to the B's with Beth Ann.
I'm Beth Ann Lindenbaum. Sorry, my name was at the top. I got confused. I'm Beth Ann Lindenbaum. I am a parent of a 4th grader and a 6th grader, and I'm the instructional coach.
How about I'll call out a couple next. So we'll go Dana, Heather, and then Holly.
So my name is Dana. I am the parent of a kindergartner. This is my very first rodeo when it comes to, kindergarten and school. So I'm very excited to be a part of this. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Heather Griffith. I work in the office at State Road. I support the 4 to 6 division, the middle school division, and I also have a son in 10th grade.
Hi, my name is Holly Bertarami. You probably all know me as Nurse Holly, though. I am head nurse for Avon Grove Charter, and I'm based out of the State Road campus for the most part.
On to the Jays.
I think I may be up next. My name is Jen Weaver. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning and Federal Programs Coordinator.
Hi, I'm Jess Abernathy, high school math teacher. I'm also the department chair for the high school math department, and I have 2 daughters at the charter school as well.
I think Miss Ahern's up next.
Hi, I'm Katie Ahern. I have a 5th grader at AGCS, so I'm a parent and also a teacher. I teach all the K to 3rd grade students at ELC as their librarian.
Hi, I'm Katie Griffith. I'm a parent. I have a 4th grader and an 8th grader.
Hi, I'm Kara Fetty. I'm a parent of a 1st grader.
Hi, I'm Matt Messick, high school principal, and also the parent of a kindergartner.
I think you're up, Miss Taylor.
Sorry, Ryan Taylor, Director of Student Services. So I support both ELC and State Road and oversee the positive behavior, social emotional learning, and mental health.
Hi, I'm Sam. I am the nurse at ELC, and I'm also a parent. I have a senior and an 8th grader.
Maybe it's me next, Sundar Yalampalli. I am parent of a 6th and a 10th grader. Thank you for actually getting us enrolled into this. Appreciate it.
I'm Shannon Palmer. I am a math and reading interventionist for K through 3 at ELC.
I'm Sharon Ray, and I'm the 4 to 6 principal at the State Road campus.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I know that can be anxiety producing, especially on Zoom. But again, I wanted everybody to kind of hear who was a part of this. I know I did get a couple emails from other members who said that they weren't going to be able to make it tonight, but did want to continue to participate. These meetings occur every second Tuesday of the month, except this year in November and December, they're going to be on I think it's the second Monday. Right? I think that's what I did. Second Monday of the month because of a conflict with our monthly board meeting that's scheduled that had to be rescheduled because of the holiday dates. And again, these meetings are really an opportunity for us as a group of stakeholders within Avon Grove Charter School to come together to be able to go over some reoccurring monthly agenda items. So we're going to talk about things like student enrollment and board policies that are going to be going to the board for first reading each month in this meeting. It's oftentimes where we will be discussing federal programs or curriculum purchasing, other major goals or initiatives that are going on, changes that are being proposed to the school. For example, when we were going through and discussing some of our schedule changes with the middle school and high school, this was the committee that sort of began and we did presentations to this committee that then went to the board. So really it's a cool committee to be a part of, because sometimes you get like a first look at some things that are coming down the pipeline, as well as get your sort of input and voices heard and perspectives and sort of fingerprints on some things that end up guiding the direction of the school in the future. And I'm going to talk a little bit about one of those things that's going to be a major discussion point through the rest of this school year here in a second. So just so that everyone's aware, if you hadn't served before or haven't gone and looked through where our committee and board meeting agendas are, if you go to our school website and you go to the About Us section and then into the school board area, you'll see a link here that will bring you to the board's board docs website. And it looks something like this. And it is where all of the board committee meeting agendas, board meeting agendas, as well as policies are housed. So each month, typically on the Thursday before this meeting, the agenda, my goal is to have the agenda published on the Thursday before the meeting, so that if there is any reading that needs to be done, policies that need to be reviewed for discussion before our Tuesday meeting, that everybody will have access to that with a couple days to be able to review. I know this meeting is a little bit different because we have a lot of new members starting, but the goal would be that this would be where you can go and view the public agenda as well as the attachments that would need to be read and any impertinent information for the upcoming meeting, just so that we can make the discussions fruitful. Some of these meetings are report outs, and some of them are working committee meetings where we might be in breakout rooms doing activities or analyzing survey data and then getting your take on that information and your perspective. So the meetings can take a couple different sort of formats. But tonight, what we are going to be doing is we did our new member welcome. I want to share a little bit of what our dashboard of initiatives looks like for our new members. We're going to go back and look at our comprehensive plan draft timeline, and I'm going to explain that for all our new membership. Returning members know a little bit about this. It's been talked about a couple times. And then on the agenda tonight was just a quick discussion and a review of some survey drafts that are going to start to be going out to students, parents, and our staff members. That's directly related to our comp plan. And then we're going to look at our board policies that are in first draft that would be being presented to the board for first reading for next week, as well as student enrollment. So I want to start with student enrollment. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So this is an agenda item that I'm adding to this year that's going to be sort of just a quick report out of where our prior month's enrollment was ending, and then where our current enrollment is around the time of our monthly meeting. Just because a lot of what we are doing coming up, particularly related to our the new proposed building project that's going to be being started at State Road this spring, student enrollment is a really important part of making sure that certain provisions of our funding remains sort of intact and for our reporting. It's also a standing agenda item that we do at our board meeting each month. So I wanted to have it be a quick discussion or just report out here in these monthly meetings. And so that way, anybody who has any questions can also ask. So this time of year for enrollment is very fluid with the start of the school year, processing summer withdrawals, new students coming in, students who may not have submitted their withdrawal paperwork over the summer but enrolled somewhere else, sort of not showing up to school, and then us having to kind of work out those kinks of what a 10-day withdrawal looks like. But at the end of the month of August, the top table here, our current active enrollment was 1908. Our budget enrollment for the year is 1930, and we had 13 outstanding students still working through their registration. So we had 20 students. 13 of them we had made offers to for enrollment, and we were still waiting on them to accept that offer of enrollment. And 7 of them had accepted and we're still waiting on their registration paperwork. Over the summer, at this time of year, we start to look at our summer attrition and do our retention rates. Over the summer of 2023, we had 128 students withdraw, which is actually right on par and average with year-over-year summer attrition. During the first 3 days of school, we had 2 students withdraw that notified us sort of after the first day of school or on the first day of school. That summer attrition was from the last day of school last year to August, basically 27th. Over the summer, we had 263 new students start with us, 170 or so of them being the new kindergarten class. We had 1 new student start within those first three days of school, basically just because of a delay in their paperwork starting. And then from up into the end of August 31st, the last table here is our total application submissions for the upcoming or current 23-24 school year compared to the prior year period at the end of August 2022. So that you can see there in all but 3 of our grade levels, we had a higher application submission or number of applications submitted than the prior year. Only 1st, 5th, and 10th grade were less than the prior year and only by 2 and 3 applications, but some of them significantly higher than the previous year. Again, this is showing and really highlighting the increasing demand for our school. We had 46 more kindergarten applications, 22 more 4th grade, 24, 22 more 6th and 7th. So again, an increase in demand, particularly in kindergarten and those mid-grade levels of middle school and early high school, seeing a high demand. And at the time of the end of this period of August 31st, we still had 320 students sitting on grade level wait lists across K through 12th grade. So that was period ending August 31st. I'm going to do the one that was reported just a little bit closer to our board meeting on September 7th and then stop for questions. So on September 7th, again, we're still processing enrollments and withdrawals and getting some of our new families through that paperwork process. We were at 1906, still with that 1930 yearly budget goal, with 34, students still sort of in limbo in between being offered and either waiting for them to accept their seat or having accepted and waiting for paperwork renewal. So I would just like to share that, while that budget active versus budget is still 24 students shy of what our yearly budget goal is, we have 34 students who are kind of in the middle of being offered a position a spot at the school across different grade levels, or waiting for their paperwork to be processed so they're actively enrolled. Any questions about those two reports? Enrollment, this period ending August 31st will be added to the September board meeting agenda for our monthly board enrollment report. But I thought that this would be another good avenue to be able to discuss this month to month, just so that we are continually watching this through the school year.
Brian, thank you. So student teacher ratio. So because there is so much of increase in the from 6th grade to 9th grade, so is it going to be still balanced that way, or is it going to be any deficiency? And also, overall number of students that are going to be enrolled are less than 24, less than target, right? So how exactly are we going to address that? Do we have any idea?
So the overall student teacher ratio, we still kind of maintain a. So there's a couple different ways to look at student teacher ratio. You can either take total student population divided by total teaching staff, right? So you get like a full K to 12 student teacher ratio. We're usually between 15:1 to 18:1 when you do that. And then you can look at like grade level specific of the number of 6th graders versus the number of 6th grade teachers, right? So, what's the average class size that occurs in our elementary sort of K to 6 grades? And then 7 through 12, it ends up being a little bit different because students end up taking sort of different classes. So, while, a high school students English class might have 22 students in it, they might be in an art class with only 12 kids. So that kind of ends up being somewhat of a different number when you look at it. But it's also, you can look at it like class size of kindergarten. While you have one main kindergarten teacher, there are 7 of them across the 175 students. But within those classrooms, there are also special education teachers. There's instructional aides. There's additional reading interventionists. Ms. Palmer's here, and she's an interventionist at ELC. So while the student teacher ratio is somewhat of a convoluted number to calculate, but when we report that out, typically we report out what is our total student population, divided by basically the number of instructional staff that impact student teaching and learning. And that's typically between 15:1 and 18:1.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Brian, how many students would you say we added this year?
100, what did I say? New student enrollment was 263. 170-ish of them were kindergartners. So you're looking at about 90 new students in 1st through 12th grade.
Thank you.
And then you can see that here, there was 23 of that 90 was in 1st grade. There's a decent amount in 6th, and then in 8th grade. Now, again, if you look at, and this is just something to keep in mind, if you look at the budget numbers, our enrollment is sort of inverted tree, right? So we are, and so our sort of step, there are transitional grade levels from 3rd to 4th, 6th to 7th, 9th to 10th is where you will typically see in our enrollment performa a drop in overall grade level enrollment. And that's planned. It's to allow for and plan for natural attrition to occur during those transitional grade band periods. So we typically see 3rd graders leave to go maybe back to their district, intermediate school, or we'll see 6th graders leave to go back to their district middle school, or 8th graders leave to go back to their district high school. So we've kind of built our enrollment to be like an upside down tree to account for the natural attrition that will occur without having to sort of scramble to backfill a lot of that withdrawal.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep. All right. The next part I wanted to share, and this is really for some of the new members, but right now I had to kind of improvise a little bit. So also, if you go to our school's website and you go to the school board area, down towards the bottom, there's really three areas that you could pay attention to. The first one, or I'm going to come back to the first one. The second one is the strategic plan area. This is our comprehensive plan, or our Department of Education required comprehensive plan that was submitted back in 2020 and ran for our 3-year period of 2021 to the end of 2024. It's this sort of strategic plan ends at the end of this academic year. What we're going to be doing this year is a lot of work on building our new comprehensive plan that we have to submit to the Department of Education in March. That will be one of our strategic plans for the school from July of 2024 through June of 2027. So that's kind of what a lot of the work and discussions for the rest of the year, this calendar year, will be moving through the planning stage. There's also our annual report area. This is another strategic planning review that we do each year, and is a recap of the previous year's major initiatives that have happened. And the first of these tiles is the strategic dashboard. Right now, when you go to it, it's going to say it's not enabled. The ECRA group has to do an update to sort of our dashboard. But what I did is I took some screenshots of it for last month and wanted to just show this to the committee members again, because we're going to be going back to this monthly throughout the year to kind of do progress checks on some of the strategic initiatives that the school set for this academic year. So within our strategic plan, we have sort of 4 main pillar areas. The first being rigorous teaching and learning. When that dashboard is updated, you'll be able to go in and you'll be able to see sort of the list of major initiatives that are going on in terms of goals or programs, or things that need to be completed or submitted that relate back to teaching and learning. There's also our second pillar is supporting all learners. So again, this is an area you'll see on there sort of our strategic planning goal statement. This one happens to be that AGCS will enhance the school community by providing curriculum, professional development, support, and protocols to promote the social and emotional wellness of our students and staff and create an equitable learning environment. So again, then there's a list of initiatives here that we have identified as wanting to focus in on and work on throughout this academic year. The third is building community. That goal statements, AGCS will build and extend the school's brand to ensure community awareness, participation, and to forge relationships with various stakeholders. That's part of this committee's sort of purpose. And the final pillar is modernizing our facilities and systems. That we're going to develop plans to modernize our physical facilities and infrastructure and ensure a safe and supportive learning and work environment. A major part of this is our State Road building project that Mrs. Bishop and Mrs. Archer, who is our head of school, and our business manager are spending a lot of their time working on. If you are a parent of a student here, or even a staff, hopefully staff members have heard of this, but if you are a parent, this is exciting and is going to be again a major thing going on at the school. So if you have younger students, this is a new major building project that's going to be going on at State Road, hopefully starting in the spring. So once this dashboard's back up and running, the committee members here, again, you can go to this. The community can really go to it. They can check in on things, and it'll be sort of our platform to go back to each month and check in on the progress of some of these initiatives. Part of this committee is also as an accountability sort of arm of the board, of making sure that again, different voices of different stakeholders are being heard, but also that we are keeping up or trying to keep up with the ambitious list of initiatives that we have as a school to grow and support our students and our staff. Any questions about that? As we go through these months, we'll kind of get updates and different staff members sort of providing reports on some of these to the committee. Awesome. The next part of that this committee is going to focus on for the next couple months is both giving insight, perspective, and thoughts, as well as having discussions about our comprehensive plan. So again, I kind of mentioned this already, but as a school, we kind of maintain yearly strategic initiatives that are either siloed in particular departments or are implemented across departments at the school, that are really things that we need to focus on, year to year. And a lot of these initiatives that fall under these strategic plan pillars are things that are department focused and are just sort of year to year initiatives that we have to look at. The Department of Education, though, requires all public schools every 3 years to submit to them what they call a comprehensive plan, which is a set of really 2 or 3 major goals or major initiatives that the school's going to undertake that are aligned to the essential practices for schools and communities framework that the Department of Education developed. So there's actually a legislative requirement that the comprehensive plan gets various stakeholder input. And that is why this committee, or a major part of why this committee exists, and why, when we went through at the beginning, sharing all of our names and what we do, you heard parents, you heard board members, you heard staff members, you had staff members who were also parents. There are some community members who don't have kids in the school who are going to be joining us. So there's actually a legislative requirement that we have specific stakeholder groups part of the comprehensive planning process, as well as different groups of staff members being represented within the steering committee. And this committee is going to act as that steering committee. So that process for this comprehensive plan is sort of multi-step. The first is looking at our mission and vision, not necessarily changing it, but maybe just revisiting it, making sure that it's still aligned with sort of our values as a school and that it still speaks to the school community. It is conducting a needs assessment of the school. A large portion of that needs assessment is 4 different stakeholder surveys that the Department of Education asks us to administer. And we're going to look at those in a minute. It's then going through that needs assessment, looking at that survey data, looking at some of our test data, our demographic data, our college and career readiness data, our college matriculation data, SAT, PSAT, PSSAs, all the assessments that we do, and trying to look at where the needs are of our school community, and then sort of transitioning that into creating new goals associated with the action plans, and then developing a cyclical review process through those 3 years. So continuing to come back to it as that strategic plan is implemented. So for example, if you go back to our current strategic comprehensive plan that was submitted to the Department of Ed, there's 3 major initiatives in there. The first one was looking at our instructional time at the State Road campus with our schedule and our building operations. So we had been working on that for a number of years, and then this year we changed our bell schedule at State Road for our 7th through 12th graders, and revisited how our elementary teaching schedule sort of overlays on top of that. This is our first year in that. So that was a major initiative within the last comprehensive plan. And then there was an SEL and PBIS initiative contained in that as well. And I think if your students and our staff will see that a lot of work being put into that, a lot of our professional development time with our staff being SEL focused. And that's because it came out of that comprehensive planning process, that those were two areas that we wanted to spend time and effort in during that 3-year period. So what gets into these strategic initiatives and what gets put into these comprehensive plans really do guide a lot of the work, time, money, human capital that the school spends during those 3 years. So this was shared at our August meeting, and I just highlighted sort of where we are within this process. So we are in our September committee meeting, and our projected sort of timeline to meet the March, well, really February completion date of our comprehensive plan out of this committee, because it needs to go up for a 28-day public review and then board approval in March, is that we were welcoming new committee members today and going to kind of be talking about this process, and then looking at the stakeholder feedback surveys that are going to start going out starting tomorrow. And then we kind of progress through the next 5 months of coming back next month and really looking at the results from all of those surveys in different breakout groups, and analyzing that data and sort of bringing back takeaways from it. In November, it would be reviewing strengths and challenges that the school has, and starting to discuss and finalize sort of 2 core goal areas for the comprehensive plan. In December, from really November through January, the administration would be doing a lot of work on building action plans and related to those goal areas. And then in January, it's kind of doing an administrative review of larger planning documents, professional development needs that might be related to those 2 goals, costs related to those 2 goals, and then published communication steps that have to happen within those goals. Do we have to like send letters out to community members, notify parents? How do we do all of that? So that's kind of a rough timeline at the 50,000 foot view of the next sort of 6 months for the committee related to the comprehensive plan. Any questions about that? All right. Next up, each month, one of the items that we do here is bring forth a group of policies that are being scheduled to be brought to the board at the same month's board meeting. So we meet on the 2nd Tuesday of the month, and the full board meets on the 3rd Tuesday of the month. So every month we will bring a number of policies to the committee here for review and discussion. Sometimes they're very cut and dry, and they don't really take a lot of discussion. And sometimes there are topics that everybody is passionate about and has a thought on, and it may garner a little bit more discussion. So I honestly think that policy work is probably one of the most important things that we can do, because it's sort of the bedrock of how the school operates and the rules that we have to follow. And some of that is guided by legislation and case law and the charter school law and the public school code. But some of it, there is gray area where we can make decisions on how we want to run the school, from administration to parents to the board, from a governance standpoint. So it's important that these policies sort of get looked at. They then go to the board for a first reading the following week. They sit with it for a 30-day, basically a month review period. And then the following month, they can vote to ratify and adopt those policies. So within that month, the board then also has an opportunity to ask questions, clarify, request changes to the policies as well. And then they also go to our legal counsel for legal review, so that everything is copacetic with the law and regulations. So this evening, and I understand, so that we're going to do two more things. I understand that some of you might not have gotten to look at these, and that is perfectly okay. I purposely made them rather straightforward this month so that it didn't take a lot of discussion. Let me screen share this. So you should be able to see one of the first policies that is being proposed for first reading for this month. It is policy 2016.1, and it has to do with supplemental discipline records. So we have a policy 2016, it's student discipline. This is an additional policy that was recommended by board docs that we have within our policy binders. And this there's three major parts to this. The first is what we have to do if we receive disciplinary records for students who have been adjudicated. It's very straightforward of what the building administrators or school administration has to do. This is legal case law that we are just sort of making into school policy, where we have to keep this confidential, how we have to get it. Once we receive it, we have to notify an adjudicated youth probation officer that it has been received. So it's just the legal requirement that we already have. And then there's a provision here about if the information or the reason why the student was an adjudicated youth happened within 1,500 feet of the school property, that there's some other, that we have the ability to impose school discipline on them. But if they basically commit a crime outside of that sort of jurisdiction or radius of the school, that we can't also then discipline them at the school level. The second area is related to Act 126. We already do this, and this part of the policy is already also contained in our 2000s admissions policy. It is the requirement of every new school registration to include a sworn affidavit statement that parents indicate whether or not their child has ever been suspended or expelled. Parents do this during their registration process with us currently. So again, this is just adding this language into this policy, as well as it being contained in our 2000s policy. And the final section, again, is something we already do related to our charter school law, but this was again requested to be added to the supplemental discipline records policy. And it is the requirement of us as the charter school, as well as resident school districts, a requirement in releasing and transferring records back and forth. So basically, if a student leaves us and goes to another school, or if a student leaves the school and comes to us, the LEA has 10 days upon receipt of a records request in order to provide the disciplinary record and supplemental disciplinary record that the school maintains at their LEA. We have to send that to them. And then if the supplementary disciplinary record contains anything related to adjudicated youth, that we have to provide with it a log, which we do through PowerSchool, of individuals who would have sort of access or provided information to it. So that would be basically saying, this is, we received this information on this date from this child's probation officer, who is this person. So we just kind of have to keep a log of what's that called in the legislature, when they kind of like a chain of custody, right, of documents, or chain of custody. Any questions on that policy? Again, rather straightforward, and really these three areas were already contained in other portions of policies that we have. All right. The second policy was a PNN update. So we already have policy 2051, which is students experiencing homeless, foster care, and other educational instability. It was actually just last adopted in May. However, the Bent Creek and board docs suggested that because of a new law or court ruling over the summer, suggested new language for this last paragraph in the policy. So you can see the red line here. The red and the stricken area is what the policy previously read, and the green area is the new suggested language that is being given to us by the legal counsel. And again, it has to deal mainly with a new court ruling over the summer that is currently being challenged. You don't see that. Okay, hold on. Thank you. Switch to tab. How about now? All right. So again, the red and the stricken out area was the previous language. Green is the new one. It reads rather similar, but it removes the students with an IEP may elect to remain in school until the age of 21, even if the charter school determines that there's an earlier pathway to graduation. There was new case law over the summer that's currently being challenged that has to deal with a student who receives special education services with a disability being able to remain in school to their particular age, and basically now it's being proposed as being beyond 21. So just new updated language, not much of a change to that policy. The next one, I don't know why it makes me keep sharing, is 60/30, which is our, we already have a 60/30 policy. So this is an updated required policy. All of the bold language is new from the last policy, and this has to deal with data breaches and what policies and procedures we have in place as a school in protecting student and staff information from data breach, and then what our requirements are as an entity in notifying people if and when a data security breach may happen. So again, we do all of this. I think our staff can speak to, two-factor authentication and password resets and authenticator numbers. We also encrypt emails that when it has certain information in it related to students' names or ID numbers. So again, we do all of this already. We already have this policy. It was just an updated language suggestions based on case law that has been coming through. And in addition to that data breach policy 6030 is a new policy 6031, basically just a continuance about data governance and storage. So this is, again, talking about what our responsibility is and the way in which we have to store student and staff members' data, and how we share that information. So it defines what personal information is, and then you can see here the redlining and suggestions for language. We have a cybersecurity threat assessment plan that is part of our insurance requirements. So we already have that put together within our IT department. So again, that cybersecurity threat assessment process governs our data storage, our risk level, how we share information, like student information, with third-party applications and third-party providers of services, and then what happens and our requirements for notification if information was ever, I don't even like using the term like hacked or taken, what we have to do. So again, very straightforward, all things that we have already been doing at our school. This policy just makes it sort of puts practice to policy. So again, I picked 4 very straightforward policies this month, so that knowing that a lot of new members were coming and would not have had the time to sort of go through 3 or 4 policies prior to the meeting. But any general questions about any of those? Again, they're scheduled then to go before the board for first reading next Tuesday. All right. Last up is the survey feedback. So there is there's not much to go through on this, because these surveys are designed by the Department of Education, and the questions then are aligned to the essential practices of schools and communities framework that the comprehensive plan then is sort of designed around. So we have 4 surveys that are going to be going out over the next couple days. One that's going to go out to parents, one that's going to go out to our students in grades 3 through 12, and then 2 that are going to go to our staff. One is a general staff survey, and then the second staff one is a school evaluation. So the first survey here is very straightforward. We gave an almost identical survey 4 years ago or 5 years ago. So when we come back in October, we're going to be looking at the data responses to these surveys, as well as how our community answered these questions 5 years ago. So you'll be able to see sort of variance change in how families, parents, staff, or students answered questions, and things that might have a lot of change within that year. Probably something we want to dive a little bit deeper into. The parent survey asks a lot of similar questions that or theme-based questions that are on our yearly surveys, like I'm treated with respect in my child's school. I'm satisfied with the response I get to questions and concerns that are brought before the school. The principal or school leader is accessible to me. So they're very generalized questions that get at the parents' perspective of both their experience with our school and our school community, as well as their perception of their child's experience in our school community. The second survey is going to go out to students. I think this is students. Nope, this one's staff. Staff. This again is asking very poignant questions of the staff. I'm going to disaggregate this just a little bit. So all of this is confidential. We don't ask first name, last name. We don't collect email addresses of anybody. So it's completely anonymous. But for the staff one, I'm going to disaggregate it just a little bit by Campbellsville and State Road, because I think that sometimes what might be an issue that needs to be discussed and addressed at State Road may not be so at Campbellsville, and vice versa. So being able to disaggregate that a little bit allows us to focus on potentially which campus is answering a particular way, and then be able to kind of hone in. It may be a particular campus issue as opposed to a full K through 12 issue. So this asks both of their staff's teaching practices. It asks them to provide an assessment of their peers, and like do your peers feel, do you believe your peers feel valued? So it's not just self-value, it's the perception of others. Have they attended parents attended parent teacher conferences when you've requested them? Have you volunteered? So there's all kinds of different questions here related to their work week, and then topics that are, you know, the daily grind of teaching related to student discipline, the pace of the work day. Do you feel supported? How do you feel about your benefits package? Like there's a bunch of different things related to being a staff member at the school. The next one is the student survey. Very similar. This goes just to grades 3 through 12. And if you're in grades 3 through 8, they actually skip, you know, the first 10 to 12 questions that are just high school specific. It asks questions about support for post-secondary planning, whether or not students feel challenged, whether they have done math application in their math classes. It really gets at the whole student experience. What's their perception of teasing and bullying within the school? Do they feel like they are supported by the staff? You know, how best do they learn? So it focuses on a wide range of questions that are then cross mapped of if you answered sort of the bathrooms aren't safe, and do I feel safe outside of school? Like we're able to kind of cross map the questions. So it asks about physical safety concerns to get to the heart of how students feel at the buildings. That's disaggregated by grade level. So again, no student names or anything collected, but they will indicate what grade level they were in. So we'll be able to look at whether or not it is campus K through 12 issue, campus specific, divisional specific, or grade level specific issues. And then the final survey that will go out is also going to staff. And this is the general school evaluation. Again, this will be disaggregated by a general role that you have at the school and site-based. And then it asks a series of questions that are in a rubric form related back to the 4 areas of essential practices of schools and communities, going back to, again, that framework that we have to work under. And staff are able to answer the questions as saying either this is not evident yet, it's emerging, we're kind of getting there, we have it and it's operational, or we have it and we're sort of an exemplary example of this. So if you look at right here, this is about improving instruction. It's going to ask Do we have aligned curriculum assessments and instruction to the Pennsylvania state standards? Does the school as a whole use systematic collaborative planning processes to ensure instruction is coordinated, aligned, and evidence-based? So again, we'll go through these rubric questions, and then as a group here, this committee in October we'll be able to kind of dive in and look at how our parents, staff, and students answered a lot of this in our needs assessment evaluation. That was a lot. I'm sorry, I talked a lot. I don't want to talk as much in the upcoming months. And I see some people smirking.
No problem. Thank you so much, Brian. You did a good job. That was a lot to go over. So are there any questions, concerns, or over anything that you've heard tonight? Definitely from any of the new members. Are there anything that you would like to add or ask? Right, I'm seeing some no.
Mr. Bruto, I have a question. I'm sorry if you said this already, but the questions in the survey, are they, or in the 4 surveys, are they provided to us, the questions, or did we come up with those? Like they're like standard questions that everybody answers, correct?
Yeah. So the Department of Ed gives us those and those questions. Now you can add to it if you want, like you can probably edit them a little, but the essential practices for schools and communities is the framework that the Department of Ed has adopted for this process. And then they built these surveys and aligned these questions to each of those essential practice sort of domain areas.
And also, I apologize if you already said this, but when are these surveys being taken?
We're gonna start sending them out tomorrow, but there's gonna be a window for completion.
So for teachers, are we referring to then the previous school year? Because it mentions things like parent-teacher conferences and the like.
Yeah, it's kind of like to the best of your knowledge. Like if you're a new staff member who has never answered, you're kind of have to, take a guess.
Gotcha.
And some of that then just gets drowned out in sort of the aggregate data.
Right.
But it's kind of to the best based on your experience at the school and your historical knowledge of the school. Same as a parent, like you might answer them in a way that is holistic of your child's continued education at the school, not just an isolated incident that happened last year in 8th grade kind of thing. So it's really perception based questions. Right. And then sort of will kind of illustrate the tide of how everybody's feeling.
And will that sort of instruction be shared out as well once the surveys are shared? Kind of telling folks to give your general perspective.
Yep, it's in the directions of it, and then it will also say
that then. Thank you.
Like if you have multiple, it asks if you have multiple kids, answer it for, I think it said your oldest child, or if you want to answer it multiple times, you're more than welcome. Like I want to submit it for my kindergartner and I want to submit it for my 4th grader separately because they've had 2 very different experiences.
Okay.
Otherwise it says, fill it out for your oldest child.
And I think that what you just said is pretty typical, I think, of previous surveys we've received as parents. I remember seeing that before.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian, what's the turnaround from survey completion to having the data aggregated and looking at for comprehensive planning purposes?
So when I close the surveys, it'll probably take me 2 days.
Okay.
And
I wasn't sure or like the department.
I'll share it with all the administration. So that we can all kind of see it, and then we'll come back in October, hopefully with sort of it. I'm not going to come back in October with raw data, like just like a big spreadsheet. I'll have it in sort of a presentation mode for us to get into groups and kind of look at and talk about themes and why might have everybody answered to be able to guide some additional discussions.
Thank you.
Brian, just for
adding to
context,
what, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say for context, like what does good look like in terms of responses in prior years?
What did we get? Again, when I do the data sort of wrap up for this, I'm going to provide the previous term. I don't have what the last rate of response was from the last time we did this. Year over year for our end of year parent survey, we get like 290 to 450 response rate, about that many responses from parents. The goal would be 100% of staff, and the goal would be 100% of students, because we're going to try to administer it, I believe, during sort of the school day at some point over the next month for students to say, like, let's give them structured time sometime during the day to be able to do this quickly. And then parents, if we kind of emulated that yearly survey result of around 300 to 450 parents, I think that gives you some valid data to look at.
Yeah, that's my question, Brian. So once we get that 300 to 400 parents aggregated, so there are 1,900 students in the school. So what is the percentage of parent response that we are looking at to get the proper aggregation? And are we going to use any third-party companies to do this aggregation to get appropriate results that we can present to the school board? So what Mr. Ryan was asking, maybe in elaboration towards that. So are we going to aggregate this data to present to the school board, or is it going to be the complete county or at the district level? How exactly are we going to present this to do the aggregation overall?
So when we get all the responses back, I'll do, it'll be basically a breakdown of response rate per question by sort of role, and I can twist the data a little bit differently. I don't think based on our size, we have 1,900 kids. It's about 1,100 unique families within the school. I don't think that's an unmanageable, and if we only get 300 responses from parents, I think that's not an unmanageable number of responses for us to be able to look at the results as a committee or as a board, as a school administration, and sort of build the graphs and build the sort of data tables that say, like, here's what these questions were, here's was the response rate, here's how they responded, here's how they responded in the past. And we haven't gotten to the point in the past of looking at like sort of discrete statistics and running like t-tests against some of it on whether or not the rate of change or response rate is statistically significant from prior years. I think we really looked at it as, does anything jump out at us? Did anything surprise us on how the responses came in? Was there a big change from the last time that we asked a question like this versus now? And do we need to kind of dive a little bit deeper into why that might have been answered that way? And not necessarily needing to utilize a third party system in sort of looking at it that way.
Yeah, fair enough. So the reason why I'm asking that question was, some students, whoever are not so readily be able to answer certain questions, right? So we need to either educate them to give what appropriate answer may be the right way. I mean, there may be impulsive answers which may affect the rating overall. So instead of that, we need to go little bit of moderate way on how exactly to look at them. And also looking at the perspective, are we going to consider named and anonymous both the same weightage, or is it going to be a different weightage based on whatever that we have today in the system?
Yeah, so I'm supposed to, and as the school, we're supposed to deliver this all completely anonymous, so that I think that then you can always make the argument of anonymous surveys. You can get like fringe outliers, right? Like what eighth grader doesn't want to go in and answer, totally disagree with every question just to kind of be funny. So I think when we look at the sort of response rate by response option, we can, and I can try to pinpoint and sort of omit potential outliers of things, or identify those potential outliers so that they don't sort of get, they don't skew something one way or the other. But I don't think it would be at sort of an N count strong enough to like sway how a question's the perception of how the question is being answered one way or the other. If we get third grade, if we get 1,600 responses, a couple outliers of kids who may not want to answer completely truthful and want to be funny will probably get washed out. And then the younger grade levels, the teachers, we do look for the teachers to be able to provide direction on making sure that there's clarification on what is the question asking truthfully. And that's why when you see in that student one, it said, if you're in grades 3 to 8, you kind of skip the first ones anyways, because they're not really for you or worded for you. The vocabulary in the questions is also not at a high level. It asks like, do you feel safe in the bathrooms? Like it's not using vocabulary and vernacular that might be above the typical reading level of our students.
Thank you. Yeah, and fantastically done. Thank you so much.
All right, any more questions before we adjourn tonight? All right, well, I want to go ahead and adjourn our meeting. Do remember that our next meeting will be held on October the 10th. And don't forget to mark your calendars for that November the 13th and December the 11th, just so you have it all set for the upcoming year. All right, so have a good night and you guys are dismissed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.